Hey, what's up guys? Joker here. Today I'm going to be giving you my performance review for Dark Souls 3 on the PC. If you've been playing these games at all, or if you've just been paying attention from the sidelines, you know that Dark Souls has not had the best track record on the PC as far as their PC ports are concerned. Dark Souls 2 was definitely better than Dark Souls 1, which launched it with a 30 FPS cap and just absolutely horrible controls. Was eventually fixed by modders and through some patching, but Dark Souls 2 was a lot better effort, but it was still not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. We now have Dark Souls 3, which is launched, and some of the issues are still really there. Things like not having the keyboard and mouse prompts when you're going through and playing the game, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. That by the third game around, they still have not figured out a way to get this into the game, which seems like a very minor technical thing that would need to be fixing. It's almost as, I don't know if they can't fix it, or if they basically have just said, fuck it. I don't know. It seems to be the latter there. It really does seem to be the latter, that they just don't care, and they're just like, oh, you're lucky enough that you're getting the game on PC, we're not going to put any effort into, giving you prompts for the keyboard and mouse, which seems like the simplest of functionalities to have built into the base level of a game. Now, running for me on my primary system, I did most of my testing on a single 980 Ti at 1440p, and I was getting a smooth 60 FPS experience at that with that graphics card at the maximum settings at 1440, and that was the single 980 Ti. If I bumped it up to 4K, I did see my frames drop down to around 30 to 40 FPS, and in that case, I did have to use two graphics cards. SLI did seem to scale, though, very well. It was pushing both of the cards to like 80-90%, and it was running at a solid 60 frames at 4K, so it seemed like that's at least what I needed to get it to run at that. I don't have lower, SLI cards here to test for 60 FPS at 4K, but with two 980 Ti's anyway, I was able to get my solid 4K 60 FPS. I did also try testing 3440 by 1440. I don't know if anyone else is having these issues, but for me, everything just got squished towards the center of the screen into like a 4:3 aspect ratio, even though 3440 by 1440 was sitting right in the menu options for me. Kind of strange. When I switched gears over to my LAN rig with the i5-6600K and the GTX 970, I was still able to maintain a solid 60 frames per second at 1080p without breaking a sweat. When I bumped it up to 1440, I noticed a couple of frame variances, but for the most part, I was able to maintain 60 FPS, still maxed out on a GTX 970. So as far as just the game's graphics, performance, and optimization is concerned, it seems to be relatively okay, although there are a lot of users out there that are reporting some massive frame drops, and we can't really seem to narrow that down to a specific graphics hardware or limitation bottleneck. It seems to be either driver optimization, or just because so many people are running these different types of systems, and Bandai Namco have just not really optimized for the various systems out there, and yeah, it's kind of disappointing, which has seemed to be the common theme here with the Dark Souls games on the PC. Another issue that a lot of people are having is crashing at the bonfires. Most people seem to be crashing right at the first bonfire. Now, I didn't have this issue on either of my systems. I didn't crash at the first bonfire. Some people are reporting it later on in the game. I'll be honest and say I didn't get past the first boss because it was absolutely brutal, so that's the farthest that I've got so far in my initial testing here. But yeah, I didn't see any crashing, at least for my own part, when I was playing the game. Now, I will say that the keyboard and mouse movement and combat is actually fairly fluid, and I think works reasonably well once you do know what the key bindings are, but you are going to do a lot of going back and forth when you're doing the tutorials to see what the key bindings are, because they give you zero information in the game as to what those buttons are actually meant to be. When you walk up to a lot of the tooltips, it's still just telling you what buttons to press on a controller, nothing for mouse and keyboard. So I just found myself walking up to the tooltips, finding out what the button was, and then finding the corresponding button in the menus, and then figuring out what it was on my mouse and keyboard, which, come on, man, it shouldn't have to happen in 2016. Coming over into our menus here, we do have some customization. For game options, we can set auto targeting or manual targeting if we want, as well as just our controller vibration. Some basic camera options here, camera speed, so our look sensitivity basically. You can set your cinematic effects on and off, camera auto, wall recovery, don't even know what that is. You could set your camera axis to normal or reverse, so inverted basically. Blood, you could turn this kind of stuff on and off. The HUD you can just completely disable if you want, but it's not individual items, so it gets rid of like the enemy health bars. Everything is completely gone, so if you want an immersive experience you can adjust that. We do have sliders here for our different audio levels, but unfortunately no option for headphones, surround sound, different types of audio devices. We can also adjust our screen brightness here. We have some various online options you can go ahead and mess with. Mouse sensitivity here, and our axis, which you can invert it if we want to, and our key bindings. And you're going to want to get familiar with this. As I said, you're going to be going in here quite a lot to check out what your buttons are to actually do things in the game, because they don't do anything to tell you whatsoever. And in fact, when I got in here the first time, I was so confused I couldn't even go back in the menus. I was just spamming the escape key, which doesn't go back in the menus, in the main menu at least. It's Q. That was my first frustration. I couldn't even figure out how to go back in the menus, but it was Q. Thankfully, when you are in-game, you can actually use escape, but for whatever reason in the main menu, it's fucking Q. Come on over to the display settings now. We got resolution support all the way up to 4K. 3440 by 1440 is there, but when I tried testing it, it kind of pushed everything just sort of towards the center of the screen and made it look all squished. For custom settings here, we do have quite a few options in here. Texture quality, anti-aliasing, SSAO, depth of field, motion blur. These things, honestly, I would run off, but for my testing, I had these up maxed out, but yeah, those options I prefer to turn off. Shadow quality, lighting quality, effects, reflections, water surface, and shader quality. So pretty, basic set of advanced options here, but a decent amount so that you can tinker in there and hopefully get the best performance on your machine. But I'm gonna go ahead and get on out of here, guys. I hope you did enjoy the performance review on Dark Souls 3. As I said, I was able to get the constant 60 frames at 1080 and 1440 on a 980 Ti or a 970, so the graphics performance seems fairly well optimized, but a lot of the other little things like the user interface and mouse and keyboard support are really bad, so know that going into it, and if it's going to bother you and you're not going to be able to play the game because of it, then you probably want to hold off on picking up. I'm going to put a link down below to where you can get it on CD keys. I believe it's about 40 bucks right now. I think it's the cheapest place you can actually pick up Dark Souls 3, so if you do still want to get it, I'd appreciate if you use my link down below. But I'm going to get out of here, and I'll catch you guys next time. There you go, you got the finger snap.